Oliver, we're seeing strong prices in global tungsten. What are your views on the market and where it's headed?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look purely at the price trajectory, and there's a chart just shown, we saw very stable prices throughout the last 18 months with a bit of an uptick, and you have these seasonal, let's say, fluctuations, specifically around early in the year. When after Chinese New Year, everybody's restocking. In what is the largest market within China, you see the construction sector picking up, which helps ferrotungsten typically in the consumption of units. So I expect the same pattern for 2025. In Aussie dollar terms, obviously with the exchange rate where it is, it helps us significantly covering the cost at Carbine, and generally a strengthening dollar also benefits our Spanish operations, where our cost base is in euros. So I think the price trajectory should remain on a positive pattern. And interestingly, it has not necessarily been a demand story over the last 18 months, but more of a supply story. So we do see limited supply coming on stream, without going into details. But if you would have looked at a project map in the early 2010s, for example, with a mine development taking 5 to 10 years at minimum, there were a lot of projects out there under development. Some of them went into production, came off again. But really, when you look at a list 2010 and compare to who is currently producing, it's only 3 out of 15 projects that we came across in 2010, right? So that clearly shows that more than half of the developments are going nowhere, or at least taking significantly longer, and that's certainly pushing out into the second half of this decade. We see some development in Kazakhstan, but other than this, Australia and also within Europe, there's very little development. So the question remains, once the demand picks up, how can the industry fill the supply side? What I took away from the trip to China as well is that there's significant import volumes from Chinese users and refiners. Purely looking at the statistics of these are custom informations periodically summarized by the Tungsten Industry Association. In 2024, China imported 5,500 tons in tungsten units. That is double the amount compared to the last 5 years average. So 2024 was very strong when it comes to China demand. And that was not necessarily end-use demand. The feeling we are getting is that there's strategic stockpiling happening in China, as compared to the Western world still struggling and digesting high interest rates and actually slowing down stock holdings. So the Chinese end users have taken advantage, and as I said, imported double the amount than they have done over the 5 years prior to that. So that's, I guess, a signal to the market. When you look at scrap prices, they are at par with APT, at this point. So I think the whole cost base will push up, and that should be, or that's typically a sign where prices for us as well should be increasing over the course of the year.
Thanks, Oliver. I know our shareholders do appreciate your insights. It's really tremendous information, getting a global view on what's happening in that market.